From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Gulf Coast studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. It's Andre Johnson.
Jr.
Do not forget the Jr. is very important. Remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you're watching us on YouTube, by now you know the drill. Hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. Also, hello, Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. Hopefully you've stayed here. There's a lot of stuff here. You got our podcast, you got other podcasts. Oh, by the way, you got the New Orleans Pelicans, who happen to share the same record, depending on when you watch this podcast, as the New Orleans Saints right now. So it's Wednesday, hump day, normally a big day, but it's bye week for the Saints. So they are getting some R&R, some much needed unplugging as they come back for the final 7-game stretch of the season, sitting at 2-8, but a little bit of momentum heading into the bye week because they're coming off of arguably their best offensive performance of the season. They go to Carolina, they get the win. So they got 2 wins on the season, nothing to be overly happy about, but it's better than 1-9, and you're coming off of a win heading into the bye week. Andre, how you feeling on this Wednesday?
I'm feeling good. The week is a lot better for us when the Saints win, and we're not drowning in negativity and talking about another loss. They win. People have a reason to be excited. The city's excited. I bowl on Mondays. I have this bowling league I go to, and every time I get there, everybody wants to talk Saints, and it's always doom and gloom. But this Monday, everybody had a smile on their face talking about, oh, you were right about that quarterback and this, that, and the other. And so it's a good time when the Saints are winning. You notice we both in long sleeves. It's not a good time outside. I'm from the South, from Louisiana, not built for this cold thing they got going on out there.
Well, look, the good news is we're from the South, and when it gets cold, don't worry, it's going to turn right back up to high 70s and 80s by the weekend as the high school football playoffs begin this weekend. All right, so there's a lot going on in sports. A lot going on up in Baton Rouge, a lot going on here locally, Pelicans, Tulane, high school football. But we're here to talk a little bit of Saints who have the week off. We understand that. It is their bye week. We understand that. So we get a chance to look ahead a little bit. Next pod, we'll look back, but this pod, we're going to look ahead. So what's the big picture today? Big
picture, we're looking past the bye week. The Saints getting the win going into the bye week, but coming out of the bye week, when you look at the schedule, versus Atlanta, at Miami, at Tampa, versus Carolina, versus the Jets, at Tennessee, and at Atlanta. Coming out of the bye week, is it possible that the Saints could go on a little bit of a run?
That's a good question. First things first, let's define a run. What is a run? You got 7 games left. To me, based off the current state of the Saints, you win more of those games than you lose. And it's an odd number, so there can't be a tie. So if you win at least 4, I guess you can tie. But you get what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
So if you win at least 4 of your final 7, that to me would constitute a run. You go 4 of your last 7, that means you finish 6-11, the record someone on this set originally predicted. Is it possible? Well, you read off the names. Well, first things first, let me get into this. There is some reasons to be optimistic. You didn't just go and beat Carolina. You beat them convincingly. You beat them with a young quarterback that, making his second start, looked like a seasoned veteran. Went in there, got the job done, and came home. But I have to throw a little bit of a warning shout out to the Shuck squad. Okay. You don't want to fall into the trap right away of the other quarterbacks, not just with the Saints, but around the league's fan bases that get a little bit happy, a little too happy, too excited, too quickly. He had a great second start, but it is just one great performance. They need to stack those week in and week out. Can he do it? I absolutely can, because he has shown he can do it at least once. That is the key to a run, though. So it all comes together. Because to me, you get quality quarterback performance, then you absolutely can go on a run. If you do not get quality quarterback performances, you will not go on a run. If you get a mixed bag, which is entirely possible with a rookie, I'm telling y'all, he's going to have his worst game at some point. And hopefully this was not his best game, even though it was a very good game.
Yep.
But he will have his worst game at some point. Maybe his worst game we already saw with the Rams. If that's the case, great. because he was at least able to survive that. But you mentioned it. Read off the names again for the schedule.
Coming out of the bye, at home against Atlanta, on the road against Miami, on the road against Tampa, back at home against Carolina, at home against the New York Jets, on the road to Tennessee to play the Titans, and then you finish up the season on the road in Atlanta.
So Atlanta twice, Tampa Bay, Miami, Tennessee on the road, Jets, and Carolina at home. You're telling me you can't find 4 wins in there?
I might be able to.
You might be able to find 4 wins in there if the other part of the equation is there, which is what? Competent quarterback play, which is something that we both believe, and we've been saying on this podcast for quite some time. Shuck gives you the best chance at providing. So I think of those final 7 games. I'm not a betting man. This is not the final bet, so I'd have to ask Garland Gillen. But based on what we saw, based on what's in front of them, would it be a stretch to say they'd be favored at least 3 times in those final 7 weeks? Probably at home against Atlanta, probably at home against the Jets, probably at home against Carolina, depending on how it's going. You got a lot of losing teams on this back end of the schedule. Heck, Tampa Bay is the only team with a winning record on the back end of the schedule. Tampa Bay, Carolina's 5-5 right now. So, yeah, they can. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. This is just 1 win. It was just 1 good performance. They absolutely could also fall flat on their face and look like bums for the final 7 games of the season, which would be thoroughly disappointing. But it would at least provide a clear picture into what you have to do once the season ends. It should be stated, the Saints don't want that outcome. I keep telling people this. The Saints do not want to have to draft a quarterback. They do not want to have to draft a quarterback. They do not want to go 2-15. They do not want to go 3-14. They don't want to tank. They want to finish with as many wins as possible. They want to feel like, because if they do that, they know they have the right guy in the building. So what would that constitute? So to me, I would love to see them finish 6-11, 5-3 with Tyler Shuck. If they do, they're not drafting a quarterback, folks. And that would constitute going on a run. If they go 5-12 and Shuck is 4-4, that would have meant they won 3 of their last 7. I don't know if you call that a run unless it was a three wins to close out the season on the back end. Yeah. They go 5-12, 4-4. I still do not believe they draft a quarterback. If you dip below that, you're 4-13 or below, I think it changes the entire game, changes the entire equation, because you'll probably have some moments in there that you like from your quarterback, but it probably would not have been consistent enough to take a quarterback off the table in next year's draft. Because at 4-13, Andre, where they're picking? They're probably picking somewhere top 4, top 5. At 6-11, probably somewhere top 9. 5-12, somewhere between 7 and 9. But 4-13, you're looking at a top 5 draft pick. If you're a top 5 draft choice, I think the team will be looking at quarterback. So it's a little bit veering off the topic a little bit, but I think it all kind of intertwines because, I had someone reach out to me on social media, say the next Josh Allen, talk about Tyler Shuck. I said, look, I love the Shuck campus. I'm on the Shuck hype train as much as anybody, but come on now. Josh Allen, come on, we're not doing that just yet. So good performance, reasons to be optimistic. Most importantly, your young quarterback and the schedule. So yes, I think they can go on a run, but by no means is it just assumed that this team is going to just go on a wild run right now. They have to prove it week in and week out, and they have absolutely no business overlooking anyone on that schedule from here on out.
Absolutely. I do think the Saints can go on a run coming out of this bye week. And before the season started, I predicted them to be 4-13. Mm-hmm. We redid it about 2-3 weeks ago, went back through the schedule. I stuck to my 4-13 prediction.
I had 5-12, yeah.
But then the game changed.
On the redo.
Then a wrench was thrown into those plans. That wrench being Tyler Shuck. When we did those first 2, we weren't sure if we would see Tyler Shuck this season. And when we did see Tyler Shuck, we didn't know how he would look. I certainly didn't see him looking that poised and that good this early. So looking at the way that Tyler Shuck and the Saints played last game, because the defense was also great. Yeah. The defense came in and executed a game plan that even the Green Bay Packers couldn't do. They looked at the Carolina team that had won 4 of their last 5, 4-0 with their starting quarterback Bryce Young in those games, and said, we will sell everything to stop Rico Dowdle, make Bryce Young beat us. They did it, and it worked splendidly. The run game, Alvin Kamara finally got rolling. Taysom got rolling. Devin Neal got rolling. The pass rush was up. The secondary was doing their jobs. Chris Olave's best game of the season. Jawan Johnson's best game. So the question is, for the Saints, was that a fluke, or is that a result that you can reproduce? Is that something that you can continually and consistently do from week to week? Because if that was not a fluke, and that's something that this offense is capable of week in, week out, and again, hopefully that's the floor, because they still only scored 17 points.
That's it, right.
Now you can 17, they were in the red zone at the end of the game, obviously, killing a lot of clock. I think they had the ability to have scored more, but at the end of the day, it was 17-7. But if that's a result you can reproduce, looking ahead, Atlanta, that is a very beatable team. And the same game plan you ran, where you sold out to stop the running back and made the quarterback that's young beat you, look at Atlanta. They've got Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the league. Tyler Algier, probably the best backup running back in the league. That two-headed monster has been killing teams, but if you can stop the run against Atlanta and make Michael Penix, who's also been inconsistent as a young quarterback, beat you, you can beat Atlanta. I look at Miami, another beatable team. If there's any quarterback in the league that will give the ball away, it's the quarterback in Miami, Tua Tagovailoa. You got to go to Tampa. The Saints played Tampa tough here. The problem is they didn't have any offense. That was one of Spencer Rattler's rough games. But they played Tampa rough, and the defense played Tampa really well here. If you can reproduce that and actually have the kind of offense that we saw on Sunday, you might be able to upset Tampa. Next up, at home against Carolina. We just beat Carolina. We know what that looks like. At home against the Jets, I wrote LOL. It's the Jets. Everybody in the National Football League can beat the Jets. Up next, at Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward, when we originally talked about this, I said the Cam Ward that you saw in week 1 will not be the Cam Ward you see in week 17. I think he'll grow. I think he'll be better. I think he'll have a better grip on what he's doing by week 17. But the Tyler Shuck I saw on Sunday, Tyler Shuck's one performance is better than I've seen out of Cam Ward all season. So once again, if that's something you can reproduce, Tennessee's a winnable game. Then you close out the season at Atlanta. That's a rival team. Anything can happen. So as I look down the stretch, I see 7 winnable games. Do I think the Saints are going to win all 7 of them? No, I don't think the Saints are going to go from, 1-8 to all of a sudden closing the season with 8 straight wins. But I see 7 winnable games, and to think that the Saints can't win 4 or 5 of them, if they can, I keep saying it, if you can reproduce the level of play that you showed in Carolina, you can go down the stretch and win 4 or 5 of these games.
I'll tell you what, they win 5 and finish 7-10 with where this season was. I mean, then you're really on the what took you so long to turn to the rookie, because you had this in you all along. The learning curve was not as deep or as steep as you thought. Everything you were concerned about him, he was able to overcome very quickly, connected with his teammates or his receivers and synergy with all his players quickly enough to go on and win 5 games down the stretch. Man, that would be something. And that would be a 7-10 record. Man, that would be something if they were able to finish that way. Look, it's easy to be glass half full right now. They're coming off of a win.
Yeah.
But I think the truth is the truth. And the truth is, you don't see a daunting task ahead of them. You don't see Buffalo on the schedule anymore. You don't see Seattle on the schedule anymore. You don't see New England on the schedule anymore. You don't see San Francisco with or without Mac Jones or Brock Purdy on the schedule anymore. You see winnable opponents, but they are looking at the Saints saying the same thing. That is a winnable opponent. So hopefully they just do what they do and come out the stretch and are able to. I want to see the consistency with Shuck. That's what I want to see more than anything else, because I would hate to have him follow up that game he just played where he made 7 or 8 big-time, game-winning plays with a performance where he throws 4 interceptions. I would just absolutely hate to see that and really just ruin all the momentum that he had just gotten, almost have to start back over and reset the narrative in the conversation. Like I said, the Saints want Tyler Shuck to work out. They do not want to go and draft another rookie if they don't have to, another 22-year-old, even though he's Shuck's 26, a true rookie at 22 years old, and have to start that whole process all over again. If they feel like they got the guy, they want to roll with that guys. So can they make a run? I think you and I are both in agreement. Yes, they can. Do you have enough guts or whatever you want to call it to predict how they're going to finish down the stretch? What do you think?
You know, I've been on 4-13 all year, but after seeing that game, I'll bump it up to, I'm going to say 5-12.
I'm going back to my original. My original was
Back to
6-11. I dropped it down to 5-12 when we reevaluated. I'm bumping it back up to 6-11 because Carolina on the road was one of my losses because I still thought that was probably going to be a Spencer Rattler game. It was not the case. They rolled with Chuck, and I'm going to say 6-11, my original prediction, which I think, given the way the season has gone, they finished 6-11. You would have finished on a high note, and good in that case it would really help out Kellen Moore more than anything else. A little more validity, a little more belief from year 1 to year 2 with Kellen Moore.
It would, and it would give a lot of fans hope, which is something that the way sports is looking in this city, in this state, some hope wouldn't hurt anybody for sure. But we've done a lot of talking about Tyler Shuck, but when you look at the draft class that Tyler Shuck came from, and all of a sudden, watching the Saints, just to refresh everybody, Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Shuck, Jonas Sanker, Danny Stutzman, Quincy Riley, Devin Neal, you could throw Maliki Mataveo in there, and Fadil Diggs. Those are the Saints draft picks from this year. We've done a lot of talk about the way this team has drafted and how they've missed and missed and missed. But so far, through about half a season, a lot of the names I just called out are looking like hits, Sean. Did the Saints finally hit a draft class?
Yeah, by the way, I was checking. I had an alert on my phone. I thought maybe I missed we had some breaking news. I had to check that. I didn't mean to look rude there. You know, it's too early to tell, but I mean, from first-year contributions, you're getting quite a bit, which I think is one of those underlying things that happen in a season like this. You inevitably turn to your youngsters when the playoffs feel like a long way away. And if you somehow overcome the odds and work your way into a winning record, you do it with young players who gain valuable experience. That's generally how it works. That's generally the positive thing about seasons like this is you let these young guys go, and when you let these young guys go, you let them make their mistakes, true, but you also let them grow on the job. So let's just go through it. Kelvin Banks has arguably been the most consistent offensive player on the team. That's a hit, if you ask me. If they get nothing else out of him, I think that is a hit, Kelvin Banks Jr. Tyler Shuck has looked fantastic in his second career start. First career start wasn't perfect, but they only had the ball for 16 minutes. Tyler Shuck is a guy that, as we've talked about many times on this program, you can feel the maturity. So if they hit with him, it certainly looks like that's at least on the right path for a possible hit. Jonas Sanker has been fantastic. He filled in when Julian Blackmon went down, and the Saints haven't missed a beat. That's a very good young player. We haven't seen much from Vernon Broughton. Devin Neal is a guy that I think is coming along, really coming along. I think he is a guy that understands pass blocking well, is a very smart player, very intellectual player, and I think he pairs well with a guy like Alvin Kamara, who's also a very smart player. Quincy Riley is now basically starting at the opposite corner. And look, we've highlighted on Film Study where he's made great plays and he's made some terrible plays. He's got a high variance. He's one of those guys where he could be completely out of position and the guy's running this way and he's running this way, like we pinpointed in the New England game. Or he's a guy making a play, recovering a fumble, or making an INT at the goal line. So Riley is a guy, you just got to let him run through his mistakes. Stutzman is going to be a fan favorite when it's all said and done.
Oh, yeah.
He's a special teams guy. He's contributing. He's getting some work in in the rotation at linebacker. For which you spent on him, a fourth-round pick, I mean, I think he's giving you some decent value. And then Mataveo and Diggs has obviously been off and on the roster. But I think all in all, we talk about Banks, Shuck, Sanker, Neal, Riley, and Stutzman. That's 6 guys that have given you legitimate contributions. And you can't really say there's been a whole lot of like OMG moments with them, like they don't know what they're doing. I've had a couple with Quincy Riley because sometimes you're on an island as a cornerback. But all in all, in a rough season, I think this has probably been one of the more encouraging storylines of this rookie class.
Yeah, it's not a foreign concept for your first-round pick to go out there and get solid playing time as a rookie. Not even your second-round pick, and Tyler Shuck getting in there eventually. But the Saints have mid to late-round guys that they drafted that are contributing on a week-to-week basis. Kelvin Banks, I mean, somebody asked me who's the best Saints offensive player, and I just kind of paused. I mean,
I mean, who else is there?
Like, who is the Saints' best offensive player? And with Eric McCoy hurt, the most consistent offensive player that has done their job and not been a problem this year has probably been Kelvin Banks Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, so Kelvin Banks, and I will admit, I questioned the draft pick. When they made it, I thought they could go more of a playmaker in that spot, but Kelvin Banks has been everything that they've wanted him to be so far. Tyler Shuck, still early, but from the 2 starts that we've seen, we gave him a C against the Rams. He wasn't on the field much, but that start against Carolina, we mentioned it on Monday. That was the best game by a quarterback in a Saints uniform. Not just this year. You go back to last year, too, all the way back to what Derek Carr was doing in that miracle, 2-0 start against the Panthers and the Cowboys. Tyler Shuck, if I keep saying it, if he can reproduce what he did on Sunday, that's a great pick in the second round. Jonas Sanker, he gave Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, headaches. Jonas Sanker is always around the football. Jonas Sanker, when, Tyrann Mathieu retires, and then you bring in Julian Blackmon, and Julian Blackmon was hot in training camp in preseason, and you're saying, okay, Julian Blackmon could really be a guy who contributes. All of a sudden, Julian Blackmon's out. Sanker steps in, and you don't miss a beat. And I think back to something that Dennis Allen said, and you can think about what you want about DA as a head coach, but no one can deny what that guy had as a defensive mind and a defensive coordinator. And he always said, I'm looking at that safety on the opposite side, and I'm waiting for someone to step up and claim that job and say, this is mine, take it. Nobody ever did, but that's what Jonas Sanker is doing right now. He is taking that job.
He is.
Quincy Riley quietly has been one of the most consistent players in the secondary. He has at least one big play a game where he comes up with a huge pass.
Always around the ball.
Devontae Adams, a future Hall of Famer, one of the best wide receivers of his generation. He had a big pass breakup against DA last week. Teteroa McMillan, one of the best rookies in this class. He had a big pass breakup against T-Mac this year. Quincy Riley essentially has moved into the starting lineup. Devin Neal, someone who you can tell is learning from AK. He only had 4 carries last game, but he turned it into 22 yards.
Good, man.
He's a
pass
solid player.
Pass pro.
Yeah, and I think back to we talk about veterans a lot on this show. We've spoken a lot about it, when it comes to quarterbacks, but in the running back room as well. Being around Alvin Kamara hasn't been since preseason, but spending time around Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Remember in the preseason, Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a huge pass block to set up, I believe it was the Tyler Shuck touchdown against the Chargers.
Tipton, Mason Tipton.
Yeah, so Devin Neal getting to spend time around a former first-round pick in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, someone in Alvin Kamara who's been one of the best running backs of his generation. I know that he's soaking all that in and taking it in. And then Danny Stutzman. All of a sudden, if you look at the tackles from the last few games, first half of the season, you don't see Stutzman really anywhere. Then next thing you know, 6, 7, 5. Danny Stutzman's kind of all over the stat sheet because he's just out there making plays. You're seeing a little less of Werner and a little more Stutzman. He blew up Rico Dowdle in the gap for a big play against Carolina on Sunday. So when I look at all of these guys, I think it's great that they're able to play early. It's something that Joe Burrow has said, Cam Newton has said. Obviously, I've never played on the NFL level, but those guys have, so I listen to what they say. They say you learn by doing. The concept that you learn by sitting on the bench, a lot of NFL players don't buy into that. You learn by getting out there, doing it, taking your bumps, taking your lumps, making your mistakes, learning what you can get away with, learning what you can't get away with. That's how they went on to be MVP caliber players in Joe Burrow and Cam Newton. So the fact that these rookies are getting out there, taking their bumps, taking their lumps early on, I think it's great for the future of this team.
The 17 class with AK and all those guys, they had such instant success. You had Ramczyk as a day 1 starter, Marcus Williams a day 1 starter, AK Rookie of the Year, Lattimore day 1 starter. And that team won. Yeah. But that team had, they still had Drew. They still had Mike Thomas. They had a lot of players in their prime. You go back to 2006. That was one of those hodgepodge. It all comes together. They had Reggie, they had Colston, they had Streif, they had Roman Harper, Jari Evans, all those guys. It was a huge class. And that was just that wonderful disaster that was 2006. that just came together into this beautiful 10-6 season and got to the NFC 6 championship game. So those two classes, my point for saying that, are going to be remembered as the top two. I don't know if this class gets to that because you won't have the instant success, wins and losses. But I will say this: if like Banks becomes your left tackle for 10 years, and you get your next franchise quarterback with the second-round pick, winning, that is a top-tier NFL draft class. You'll probably get a decent contributor with Devin Neal. Sanker looks like a starter. Riley looks like a starter. Stutzman will eventually be a starter. And if it works out with Tyler Shough, that's the key. Because if it works out with Tyler Shough and he's a boom, not a bust, then this could be one of the best draft classes the Saints have ever had. I do like the contributions early. It's totally different circumstances. It's a totally different team this year. But getting them on the field, getting them some work, I think is certainly a good thing, and it will certainly help this team going forward.
I always joke that Mickey Loomis is good for a solid draft class once every 10 years. And, you know, when you look at that timer, 06 to 17 to now 25, maybe this is that one. But, you know, we still have half a season left to go. I named out those teams. I think a lot of these guys will continue to get playing time. I'm curious to see. You know, we didn't even talk about Vernon Broughton, who was taken in the third round. You know, he's out for the year. Maybe Vernon Broughton can come back and provide some help in an area on the interior that the Saints need. You know, for Dio Diggs, who Cam Jordan was very complimentary of throughout the offseason. Maybe he eventually steps in.
He could,
You need some tight end help in Maliki Mataveo. So maybe those other guys who we didn't name still have time to contribute, because it's still very early in all their careers.
Still very early in their careers. Believe it or not, it's still somewhat. We still got a long way to go in this football season. We really do. We still got another 7 games. So enjoy this bye week. We'll be back on Friday. I'm gonna watch some football, college and pros. I love bye week Sunday. Just kind of sit back, relax, and watch everything. Not be as stressed out as we normally have. It's very hectic for us on those game day Sundays. So, and hopefully they come back against Atlanta. They let this run get started. All right. We got to go. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We will catch you guys next time on Overtime.